Dzień dobry wszystkim. Nazywam się Rafał Kosewski, jestem współkuratorem wystawy Nostalgia za człowiekiem i w imieniu całego zespołu artystycznego zaangażowanego w przygotowanie wystawy i programu towarzyszącego tejże wystawie serdecznie zapraszam na Artist Talk Michaela Bartona i Michiko Nity. Nasze spotkanie odbędzie się w języku angielskim, zatem nie traćmy czasu i przełączmy swoje mózgi na częstotliwość BBC. Hello everybody. I would like to welcome you all to a very special meeting with a pair of very special and very cool artists, Michiko Nita and Michael Barton, known simply as Barton and Nita. Michael and Michiko are taking part in our exhibition at the gallery of the Pedagogical University of Krakow, the Podbrzezie Gallery. The exhibition entitled Nostalgia for a Human, created by me and my colleague Monika Weichert, who is also present with us, will last just 4 more days until November 18th. So I encourage those who have not yet had the opportunity to see it to hurry up and visit it, because it's really worth it. In a nutshell, our exhibition is an attempt to capture various mindsets and artistic approaches in the face of the climate change. The exhibition can be also interpreted as a premonition of the imminent collapse of humanity, which is too slow to respond to the devastating changes in the global ecosystem. Together with Monika, we decided to title the exhibition Nostalgia for a Human, because we use the notion of nostalgia as the main critical frame for the discussion about the new role of our species in times of the Anthropocene. Rather than an expression of obsessing about the past or a general reaction to yearning, here at the exhibition, nostalgia is understood as a technique for provoking a change through an activity that at first glance is impossible. That is, recalling various fates of Homo sapiens in the near or distant future. Thus, nostalgia is a narrative, an expression of obsessing on how memory works, the past, but not memory of the past, but memory of the future. And this brings me to the project of Michael and Michiko that is shown at the exhibition, a piece which is a part of the ongoing project entitled Biota Beings. At the exhibition, one can see a sculpture of a mysterious skull, a part of imagined exoskeleton, as if it was left there in the landscape to decay and support other life forms, whilst collaborating with ecological cycles. I find this piece as a perfect example of what we could call the archaeology of future, or just memory of the future. In just a moment, we will find out more about the meaning and content of this and other projects, told much more eloquently by Michael and Michiko. But first, let me shortly introduce our dear guests. Michiko Nita and Michael Barton are based in London, where they form a transdisciplinary art and design studio, collaborating with science and technology to investigate our future world and human evolution. Their projects, preceded by extensive research, are often created in collaboration with scientists and engineers. It is worth to mention that they are both graduates of the Design Interactions course at the Royal College of Art, that was being run by Anthony Dunn and Faina Raby, a pair of very influential designers and academics who are responsible for creating and promoting the concept of speculative design. Now, a part of their artistic activity, Michael and Michiko are lecturers at the Central St. Martin's University of London. They both have been awarded the honorary degree of Doctor of Arts by the Solent University. Their previous works, such as Algae Culture or the Algae Opera or the Instruments of the Afterlife, are published and exhibited internationally, from MoMA in New York, Centre Pompidou in Paris, Victor and Albert Museum to Royal Academy of Arts in London. I'm happy to add that it is not the first time when Barton and Nita are showing their work in Poland. In 2016, I had the honor of hosting them at the Przemiany Festival in the Copernicus Science Center in Warsaw, where they showed part of a project entitled Transformosphere. Right, so let's start our meeting. Michiko and Michael will now give their presentation, after which there will be some time for questions. Please write your questions in the comments below, and I will try to read them all after the presentation. So, Michael and Michiko, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Raphael.
Thank you, Raphael. I'll switch.
We're going to attempt to share.
Yes, and now we will vanish from the screen.
Absolutely. No, wait, yeah. Thank you very much. So I'm Michael Burton.
And I'm Michiko Nita. I hope everyone can see our first slide.
Yeah.
Hopefully. Yes.
Raphael, if you can just come on and just tell us if you can't, but if not, we will carry on.
Yes, I can see everything. Great. I can see the presentation.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. So as Raphael mentioned, we are running multidisciplinary art studio called Burton Nita based in London. And we also teach and run workshops at universities like Central St. Martin's and Royal College of Art. And our work investigates human futures and evolutionary paths influenced by emerging technologies.
I'm from the UK.
And I'm from Japan, as you can see, and we met at Royal College of Art, where we studied together, as you can see. And I'm from Tokyo, in the middle of the Tokyo in Japan, and where the city is filled up with clean, sterile, artificial spaces. And as a child, I was reading manga, watching anime, and surrounded by a concrete jungle, and I was immersed in artificial life, which I really enjoyed. And since I left my country quite a long time ago, and now looking back to my artificial life, somehow it is out of sync with my biological self.
In contrast, I grew up in this landscape in the Fens in the UK. And as you can see, it's incredibly flat and quite empty, which is great to observe the seasons and the changing weather patterns. But it's also an artificial landscape. It's maintained through drainage and pumping systems to stop this agricultural land from reverting back to a wetland, bogland that was its natural state. So working together, we're really interested in these contrasts always and reflecting on where we came from and where we're heading. So when we think about our work, we come back to two main questions. And they are, what are we as humans, as a species and as an animal, and where are we heading in the future? And when we're looking at exploring what we are as human, we really like ideas, research, or reimaginings of what this thing called human could be. For instance, the idea of the human superorganism that acknowledges the network of bacteria, fungus, and other microbes that live on and inside us, that create so much of our functions, our bodily functions, from our immunity to our digestion. And their cells outnumber our own human cells. So we absolutely love these kind of switches that challenge us and our ideals of what it is to be human.
And as artists, we think a lot about future. And when we think of this future, it is not about tomorrow or next year. It is about further future, like year 3000. And when we create artworks for this further future, we never try to solve problem, nor predict the future. Instead, we create a space for all of us to explore endless possibilities human can evolve into with the help of emerging technologies. And we believe that this further future is rooted back to our deep past as a human being. For example, humans used to be hunter-gatherer, and 10,000 years ago, we created a huge step into human evolution. We set the first seed, started to store the crops, and we began the agricultural revolution.
Yeah, so for us, it's these small steps that gather into big periods of change. And something that links through all of our pieces is this idea of imagining what we could be in terms of adaptation and transformation, in this idea of humanness or going forward into what that could possibly be. And when we think about adapting to these into this future, we'd like to think about the biggest challenges that we have on the horizon that might direct and steer choices and paths of the evolution.
So as a first collaboration project back in 2010, it's called Algiculture. We wanted to challenge the way we eat in the future of food shortage and overpopulated land. So to tackle this huge future issues, for us, it was important to change the question from what we will eat to how do we fuel our body alternatively. And we were hugely inspired by this sea slug called Elysia chlorotica. It is a sea slug which evolved to have a new organ on its back containing lots of algae. They eat only once a month, and the rest of the time they gain energy through the algae on its back, like photosynthesizing of the plant.
For us, it's a perfect invitation to try out that kind of potential. This is our first prototype suit, the algae symbiosis suit, as we called it. It's functioning to channel the CO2 into reservoirs of algae that then we can harvest into a food system. We made various suits, trying it out on different bodies and different relationships with the algae and with food.
And the more recent project, we wanted to challenge the way we throw away and how can we thrive with the contaminated future, which is probably created by the Anthropocene era by humans. So with this project, we collaborated with consortium of scientists from 5 leading universities in the UK who developed a system that converts the contaminating metals like arsenic and platinum into the nano form so that it becomes used for humans, like becoming catalyst for hydrogen fuel cell. And they developed this system by employing the engineered bacteria and the plants. So we created these instruments for performance and then did performance to transform contamination into valuable materials by employing these plants and engineering bacteria. So not only making this circular economy system, but also it was important for us to see that we could possibly erase the mistakes of the past created in the Anthropocene era.
Yeah, and then fast forward to 2019, this piece, New Organs of Creation, we worked with tissue engineers at King's College London to explore the potential of the voice. So this was around the time of the Brexit negotiations, and we went out interviewing, leading interviews, and something that kept coming back was this feeling of being voiceless and not heard. So this piece explored the potential of the voice and how we connect with each other through the voice. So we created a prototype larynx voice box, as shown here, that would allow the voice to connect directly with another body, on a cellular basis and direct potentially stem cell technology. So we grew this as an artifact of a voice.
So from all these past projects, going through this, we realized that we can make mistakes as humans, and humans in the world are complicated, and it's always constantly changing and in flux. So how can we perceive the changing world?
Yeah, so very much our work went from the physical and the bodily. And then when we were looking forward, we wanted to really rethink the way we think, actually look at how we form thoughts and change that inner world of the body. So in Altered Ways of Being, we joined a team of international researchers called Octolabs that were studying cephalopods, particularly octopus. And they were interested in the octopus not only as an animal, but also as how they fit into our cultural perspectives. For us, the octopus offered us an opportunity to see how a mind evolved in a very different path to our own, and reframes our idea of intelligence and the emergence of thought and thinking.
So we went to on our journey to meet a real octopus in the aquarium, and we met this octopus. This is called a pumpkin. And when we started to try to catch her, and when things become very quiet, she started to emerge like this and started to say hello to us. And then she was as curious as us, perhaps. So with this work, we wanted to explore how we can expand how we perceive the world through these kind of cephalopod, the octopus, who has extended ability to feel the reality. They can see with the skin, smell with the suckers, and think with the arms.
At the same time, we were really inspired by Donald Hoffman, a cognitive scientist, and his view that actually through our evolution, we've evolved to only perceive enough of the world around us to ensure our survival. And actually, it's a cross-section that misses quite a lot of the fullness of the world around us. But through the octopus, we could see how a different body can sense and perceive the environment in very different ways. It was actually quite a humbling experience as well, because we realized that we have this limitation to actually experience the complexity around us. So in the work in response, we used tools such as the rubber hand experiment and interface systems that took biometric data and converted it into light and sound to try and extend the body in various ways and probe different ways we could extend the mind and how we think. This went through into quite a concrete result as well, the Reality Coach, which is a deck of systems of prompts that challenge normalizations, give us opportunities to interrupt and disrupt our thought pattern to think more widely.
So after exploring the human abilities for these further unforeseen futures through these projects, we realized that we need to confront the human limitations, because this world is all interconnected and much more complex than we think. How can we move beyond human limits, and how can we consider a world after humans exist?
So welcome to our most recent project called Biota Beings. The piece in the show at the university is from This Works. And Biota Beings thinks of humans on a biome level to encounter the complexity of the many relationships that we exist within. It acknowledges that we are in the Anthropocene era, the human age, where we literally are changing the world around us. But it's at this point where we realize what we think manifests the worlds we experience. And in reaction, we probe different relationships with the organisms and natural elements in the ecosystem to think beyond the human world. We think in deep time frames from the past to the future, the deep future, beyond our lifespan. And thirdly, we consider different worldviews and mind frames that might see our place in the world differently, and even consider dimensions alongside the human world. So the project is inspired by many researchers, including James Lovelock, the originator of the Gaia theory, but in his more recent ideas in the Novacene, where he gives us the tool of intuition as beyond logic to try and navigate and comprehend complex systems. But also theorists like Donna Haraway, that through her ideas about becoming with, gives us clues to and ways to imagine multi-species futures, and when she says it matters what thoughts shape thoughts, this really underpins the direction of Biota Beings. So from her inspiration, we formed what we call a becoming, and our becoming is a manifesto of sorts, but it acts to take the man out of manifesto. It currently features 10 guiding principles that all pin back to leading research or reimaginings of the human place within the environment. So just picking one, for instance, share resources across borders. This relates to Susan Simard's idea as a biologist of mycorrhizal fungal networks that link trees into something that resembles a neurological network that she calls a wood wide web.
So this project, Biota Beings, also acknowledges the limits of human perception and understanding of complex natural systems. Our environment is constantly changing and it is also in flux, partly maybe because of the human action. Biota Beings artworks creates a space for the unknown. It also creates ways to know without knowing through stories and folklore.
Yes. So let us introduce this concept through a very normal plant, the dandelion, that I'm sure we're all very aware of. But the biologist Thor Hansen opens up a whole new dimension to this plant. We currently see this as a weed, but actually Hansen proposes this as a master of adaptations. And for us in Biota Beings, it becomes a talisman to think about how we can similarly adapt. And whenever we encounter a dandelion in the street or wherever in the city now, it prompts us to think about adaptation. So let me tell you more about the dandelion. So as a plant, it doesn't require a pollinator to produce thousands of seeds, but it does provide nectar for insects and pollinators. It can grow in really infertile soil in the most hostile areas, as shown in the top pictures, but and also in a nice lush lawn. It can grow really thick, nutritious leaves that we can eat or make a tea, or its root can be roasted into a coffee-like beverage. But also, if you cut it back, we know it can regrow and regenerate from the smallest of its roots. So it's super sustainable, super resilient, and highly adaptive to different environments. If we look at this plant, we can untangle some human relationships that are really unhelpful based on past mind frames, where we've seen this plant as a weed and a pest. But really, it could be a clue to how we can adapt to these extreme environments going forward. Also, if we look at this plant through different belief systems, in magical belief systems, the tea can be used in divination spells. It can cool spirits from the past. And in story and folklore, a folk name for dandelion is piss the bed, and this relates to its medicinal properties as a diuretic to make us and other animals urinate. And for us, this is our final clue, where the dandelion gives something of itself but asks something in return, and allows us to enter into an ecological relationship with this plant, where if we consume it, we are asked through our urine that we can give something back in the form of potassium nitrate or phosphates that help it prosper. We created this, the dandelion bladder piece, where a dandelion mist allows us to consume part of the plant, where it will affect our body in an entangled relationship internally. But also the piece grows the dandelion, but creates a space for the unknown relationships to enter into this permeable membrane. So it may be other species, other ecological relationships, or another spirit type encounter.
So moving on to next piece of biota being, we are looking at the animistic belief. So in animistic belief, we worship the nature. And one of the example is a Shintoism in Japan. In Shintoism, we believe in so-called Yaorozu, which is 8 million gods. It is something like gods in Shintoism way, something sacred. 8 million gods are countless natural things like tree, sun, and moon. And the picture you're seeing here is in the Meiji Jingu Shintoist shrine in Tokyo, in Japan. And in between two trees, you can see this rope. And these special ropes are called shimenawa, and it is a boundary between human world and the sacred world, often used to spell out humans entering into the pure natural world. And there's another thing called is tree spirit, which is called Kodama. And it's existed as old as 712 AD. And it is believed that Kodamas only lives on trees older than 100 years. So if we hurt the tree, we get cursed by them. But if we worship the tree, we get blessings. So before religion started, humans worshipped nature through animism. The animistic belief let us connect with nature closer. And humans knew we need to respect the tree and natural nature around us, leading us to survive in a complicated environment without knowing exactly what was happening.
So taking an inspiration for the kendama rope, this is our kendama rope, which has a dual function. So materially, it's constructed of soil, wood chip, and organic humus within the structure you're seeing here. And this is the perfect environment for mycorrhizal fungus to grow. And through this rope, allow plants and connecting into trees to enable systems beyond our human world. It has a second function that visually, metaphorically, the act of binding with the rope, it binds us and anchors us back into an environment and ecological networks. So the kendama rope visualizes for us this hidden world of the fungal plant tree network, resembling something like a neurological network, but it also creates a bridge beyond our human world to the non-human world. We took the next stage of the kendama rope. This is in a very limited biodiversity landscape. But through the Kodama rope, we imagine an inoculation of fungus, but also it creates spaces for relationships beyond our knowledge with other species, and at the top a site for pollinators, for instance. In the final image, we imagine this to be a rich tapestry of biodiversity way beyond the human world.
And this Kodama ring has the same structure as the other Kodama rope piece. It contains soil, the dark organic matter, and wood chip inside of the rope structure. And it creates a space for fungi that will become the lifelong partner of the oak tree growing inside of the ring. With this Kodama ring, it let this oak tree communicate and survive through the tough environment in the future, because fungi is a fantastic environment engineer for other species. We wanted to let audience think about the time frame beyond the human lifespan with this piece. The space inside of the ring let us imagine the time when the trunk of the oak tree fill up the space, probably in 300 to 1,000 years time in the far future. We wanted the people to imagine the environment around this tree in the far future, maybe after humans extinct. And moss is another interesting environment engineers too. In the evolutionary history, moss is the early colonizer of the ground. And as you can see from this picture, moss can turn infertile land to fertile land. You can see that the fungus grows only where the moss growing.
And that brings us to the piece in the exhibition. So as Raphael mentioned, this is a speculative piece that imagines our artifacts and technology with the mind frame that everything we do enables and prospers life beyond the human world. So as an exoskeleton, this supported a body, but after it's discarded or the body has long gone, it is specifically designed to be colonized and as a habitat for moss. And from that point, there is a chain reaction of relationships that we are not designing. We are literally creating a space for a chain of events to happen, enabled by what we leave behind, for different species to inhabit this form. In the show, we also included the oak tree as this kickstarting a whole time frame in the next 1,000 years. So we're not designing the fullness of the afterlife of the artifact. We're creating space for the unknown and a way to know without knowing.
And it's moving on to next part of this Biota Being project. So in Japan, again, we have a saying that mushroom grows after the thunderstorm. So people does go out to pick up mushroom in the woods after thunderstorm in early autumn. So people knew what to do without knowing, and this belief or saying have been approved by science recently. Professor Koichi Takaki at Iwate University has published a paper in 2011 proving that the electric pulse power can promote up to 1.8 times fruiting of the shiitake mushroom. The research is still continuing today, and some other researchers has published a paper saying that the thunder shock around the mushroom log can also promote more fruiting of the mushroom. Also, another research team at Dartmouth College in US has found out that the mushroom spore can act as nuclei for raindrops, and it was published in 2015. So not only the thunderstorms can promote the fruiting of the mushroom may be controlling the environment to promote their own fruitings.
I mean, this absolutely amazes us that something of the smallest of the organism can influence the vastness of the atmosphere and weather conditions. Maybe oversimplified, but for us, this is a gateway into considering the vastness and the complexity of natural systems. To enable the shiitake mushroom, we created an instrument to allow them to compose a thunderstorm through these rain stick instruments. So this proposes to pick up electrical signals and spore release from the shiitake mushroom as it grows, to convert it into data to play the instrument that will now allow a drumming on this log to promote further fruiting bodies to be produced, thus creating more spores to create an environment to feed back into the process. So that brings us to the end, and we would like to pull together where we've been and where we're heading. So if we return back to our opening questions of what is it to be human, we start off with a picture where we are very much other as much as human, with the network of bacteria, fungus and other microbes that outnumber our human cells. We can build upon this idea of a community of otherness to enable us to shape technology and have a position within the environment and ecological networks. Through altered ways of being, research with the octopus and scientists such as Donald Hoffman shows us that we only perceive a thin slice of what we call reality, showing us there's minds and intelligence much further and much different than our own, but it shows us our limitations, and we can make space to see through these different organisms, different worldviews. And through Biota beings, we see that there are worlds beyond our human realm. We can create space for them through systems of knowing without knowing, through intuition, and also through different mind frames and different belief systems. We can enter in beyond logic to embrace ideas around intuition, empathy, emotional intelligence, but also create space for the unknown to happen beyond us.
And where we're heading in the future is we hope that the artwork we create shares multiple future visions, and also our project and artwork let us explore the endless possibilities human can evolve into with the help of emerging technologies like you saw in the collaboration with scientists. This can change according to our dreams and desires, and it might ask us to go beyond the human being to consider other ways to be, or are we redefining what it is to be a humans?
So that's the end of our talk, and I think we're going to stop sharing the screen now so that we can take some questions.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay,
that was amazing.
Great.
No, did it stop sharing?
Have we stopped? Yes. Yeah. Great.
Now you can turn on the camera, if you like.
Great.
Okay. Thank you very much for the presentation. Yes, we have a question that refers to your, I suppose, to your inspirations concerning algae and mushrooms. The question is as follows. Do you see the first attempts to adapt the human diet to the conditions of the future? Are there early symptoms of deep adaptation?
Are there early symptoms of deep adaptation?
Of deep adaptation of humans to...
Do we see any signs? of it happening. We are really interested. We've just recently had an exhibition at Kew Gardens, and that was really interesting because we opened up into sort of the research, what's happening now in terms of food science and future foods. And for us, we're really excited by things like bacterial protein, where so we've probably heard of in vitro meat, but this is where bacteria, through fermentation process, produces protein, which obviously will limit the amount of animals that are used in our diet. But for us, we're interested that food maybe can give us new opportunities. So rather than that just resembling perhaps what we understand as meat, there are huge possibilities to how we can reshape that and have different relationships with the process, with the sites of how it's produced. So yeah, we're excited by that, but also the idea of deep and diverse diets. Since we did that project in 2009, 2010, I mean, it's, you know, algae is very much being talked about as coming into our diet in different ways. Not as probably as extreme as growing it on the body to try and be a sea slug, but it's definitely coming through in more ways. So yeah, I think where we're moving to now is how these foods connect, not only with us, but also the bigger ecological connections. For us, the adaptation needs to go a little bit further to think about the relationship we have with the food and its origin, not just to replace something which we have in our past, not to resemble something, but the opportunities to go further. I think that's where we get excited.
Because we have to go forward, whatever happening. We've done it, like we said. The Anthropocene era has happened. The world has changed already, and we can't just go backwards to perhaps maybe this is the nostalgia. We love looking back, but now we have to look forward. Therefore, how can we live with the environment we are facing, we will be facing? And that's why we wanted to change how we see food, maybe question about the food and the food culture, or how we eat.
Yeah, because hopefully what's coming through, we don't shy away from the difficult, bigger questions. And for us, we always feel it's a missed opportunity if it's something like a sticking plaster sort of response, where we kind of, as Donna Haraway would say, we don't stay with the trouble, we don't follow it through. But, you know, by just probing how far we could go, it allows us to get it out into the open, create a dialogue, a discourse to sort of try out different ideas and different futures. Without that, I think we don't know the possibilities. We stop too short. So I think this is where perhaps the idea of speculation and prototyping and, you know, just pushing it that little bit further to get under the skin. What's at the crux of the problem? What could it be? Where could we go? These kind of questions, and change the question as well. We're a big fan of a good question and how we design a question. Have we got the right question to start off with? Does that mean? I don't know if we answered the question. Sorry.
I think you do. The second question concerns art and science, as in a way. Your artistic activity falls within the paradigm of the dialogue between science and art, and we have a question which I will read now. Often we can notice scientists say that collaborating with an artist helps to communicate their practice to a wider community in a way that they hadn't done before. What's your personal experience, point of view of the space which requires particularly cooperation between artists and, for example, biologists? Can it be something more than inspiration?
Definitely more than inspiration.
Yeah.
I hope.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely a two-way process.
I think so. We can't collaborate without like mutual respect and a mutual collaborative manner in a way. Then, and we all enjoy the collaboration. I think that's only way we could make the collaboration happen in our experience. And we hope it's useful for them.
Yeah, I think also we often think of creativity only in the realm of like the arts, but what we are excited about is how creative scientists and labs are, particularly around hypothesis formation and designing the experiment. But for us also, hopefully when we enter into a collaboration, we bring something beyond like the idea of a logical thing. We enter into that relationship with curiosity and inquisitive questioning, and finding these ways of explaining things that open up dialogue and discourse.
Yeah. I think it was clear when we did this instruments of the afterlife. So it was already the scientific team. They were multidisciplinary already, from plant biology to nanotechnology to biology to synthetics biology. Lots of different kinds of science were getting together. Scientists were getting together to create this circular economy system of the cleansing the contaminated land. And we worked together on the public engagement part, and as we were kind of one of those who first time could see all of we visited everyone's lab, and we did an interview all together, and we created the video and the diagram to understand we're not scientists, so we can only understand on a quite public level. And that kind of felt, some scientists said it was quite helpful to make it publicly accessible information rather than these high academic on some aspect of the part that they wanted to engage with public. Of course, we value this scientific paper and the academic process, but we felt really happy, like we really felt like, oh wow, that was the collaboration. They also, it was a lot of time for them to spend with us, because we were like, okay, we didn't understand that. Can you say again, kind of thing.
I think that's a good position. That
it was nice.
It helps as a leveler, but also, just imagining more of the social and cultural positioning of what they're doing, to ask maybe some difficult questions, or to prompt
silly questions.
Yeah,
we did question a lot of silly things probably for them.
Yeah,
it's like very basic question. Okay, we don't understand science, but we need to do public engagement, and we were already very excited with the science, so we really wanted to do this, to show some amazing science going on. So.
And it allowed us to parachute above the individual elements to consider
journalistic.
The more, I guess, the human relationship with the technology and what was happening on the individuals, but also to consider what happened on the sites that led to the contamination. And I think from the start we were sort of saying to ourselves, well, the idea is to erase the contamination to make it into a valuable material, but what clues are there within the process that allows those mistakes never to happen again? So actually what we brought
in a culture.
Yeah.
I think we wanted to, we can't, like we said, we can't erase the history, the human culture, which happened in the mining site. For example, there was a brass band and there was a community there, and we brought in the human soft culture bit into the project. And I felt, we feel it's a successful project. Did it make sense?
And now we have a more concrete question. Is your algae experiment feasible to put into practice, or is it rather a demonstration of the direction of research?
Interesting question. So our first prototype suit was very much a prototype. How do we get this to it's very much, what is the relationship with the algae? How do we get the CO2 to the algae and oxygen back?
And then experience how it feels like to wear the algae on your body. So that for us, it was important to feel it.
And it's interesting when you frame this idea of did it function? Because as a project, as a process, yeah, it did function because it made us think in very different ways to challenge how food is produced and our relationship with it. So in terms of a prompt to spark a process, yes, everything sort of leads into a direction. So it did function on that level. But then afterwards, the second suit, for instance, we designed for the algae, the opera singer in the algae opera. Yeah, we were growing sprinella, algae, we were making sushi, we did some performances. Well, the first time we did it in Amsterdam,
I think so.
we could feed an audience with the algae that we were growing
with the opera singer's breath CO2 feeds the algae to, so it did work in a performative experimental way.
So I think what we're saying is, things function in different ways, whether they're a speculative artifact, a probing potential, or actually then we take it up to a point where we can perform in the fullness of the piece.
And then also it is the further future bit of, okay, can we become like a sea slug? That is a complete speculation because we haven't evolved to live in year 3000. But our prototypes are for us to experience the steps towards the evolution of our body. So how much can we, and it can open up to another research. We look at the Japanese people and we eat more seaweed, therefore we have a new bacteria in our guts and all that. So we have to eat more seaweed and we have to eat more algae inside of our body to go towards that sea slug way. So we are making fast step, hopefully, by doing that.
And what we love is when we make or enact, or I guess pre-enact a future, it allows us to, the symbiosis suit became like a seed, a catalyst to reimagine the bigger picture of how we design our cities, how we maybe live within a workday that values the height of the sun to enable maximum production, how we relate to each other. It soon kind of moves out in multiple directions.
Which we didn't show today.
Yeah, we didn't show that, but yeah.
Anyway.
Okay, now I would like to ask you a rather more technical question, which is about how do you start your every artistic journey? And to combine this question with the reflection that Monica just sent it to me. I think every project that you do is preceded by extensive and multi-layered research. There are different in every project, for example, in Biota Beings, there are different threads based on various discourses, technological, cultural, political, historical, etc. So I wonder how such a process is carried out. Where do you start? What tools do you use? How do you establish relationships with various experts and scientists? And coming to Monica's question, which I think it's new to my question. Monica is asking about pre-scientific knowledge that you are inspired. Is it connected to post-colonial criticism as well?
Interesting questions. This might take a bit of time to unpack, but okay, the journey of our projects.
First, the research bit.
Yeah, let's tackle that bit first.
Yes.
I guess it's easy to fall into this idea that a project is linear, but for us it's not linear. Things arise.
It's holistic. So for us, whole journey from, like, we don't quite have this, okay, let's start project now, and then okay, here it's finished. I think it's a very artistic way of tackling. It's just ongoing, and probably for us, research is not just about reading or sitting down and thinking about it. We do research by doing, and research by experiencing, and then research by making. So all these pieces is probably part of the research as well as the outcome. And this research journey, like we just share the highlights of this research journey. Like you can see, we go onto the bush to install this Kodama rope and see how it looks and how it acts, and then we grow the oak tree in a ring, and then make the skeleton, the skull, and it's part of our research as well as our outcome. So it's quite, I can say,
it changes every project as well.
That's true, yes. But for Biota Being, it's still ongoing. We see it as a long-term project.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
That's how we tackle the research bit.
And really, when we think about contacting and engaging researchers or scientists, it is very much in a spirit of curiosity and inquisitiveness and wanting to know more and to connect, really.
Yes, and reassurance as well. We contact more from the view of, okay, we love your research, and in this bit, so can we interview you? We're doing this project, that kind of approach.
Yeah. And making meaningful connections.
Yes.
And moving forward, not alone, but with many. I mean, that's why we started to work together, because we can, through our different viewpoints, we get to have those conversations that challenge maybe perspectives or what we think we know or where we've learnt things from or different cultural viewpoints. So that's moving on to that second part of the question, probably this pre-science knowledge. I mean, Raphael, you mentioned the archaeology of the future, and I think, that's so interesting. I mean, things like mudlarking or archaeology or discovering something maybe that we forgot or what wasn't there, or enlivening ideas from this sort of in a post-colonial way, opening up the idea of more equitable futures as well, where we all get to participate and shape rather than a few, but the many, I think is.
But also, we want to invite people. So it's not just scientists who probably today's presentation were quite science-led, but new organs of creation, for example, that started with us going for a UK trip. That was when the Brexit was happening, and we saw the conflict of people and the march and everything. So we went for a trip, UK-wide trip, to interview public, the people on the street, the people just sitting around, to talk about their voice and their feeling, and if they have any voice in this turbulent culture. And that's the starting point, and those public voice has fed into the final outcome. So that's and then we also collaborate with musicians and other creatives a lot to do discussion. Maybe that can spark us the starting point a lot, and so it's multi-entrance points of the research. Did we leave out anything?
I'm not sure. I've forgotten all the questions.
Okay. Now we have a biggie. It is true indeed that people have a little knowledge about our world and reality in general. There is so much more to explore in terms of nature and diets. What do you think is the direction that humankind is going towards? I mean, that's a great question, but I mean, the volume of it. Do you see our path being shaped positively or not?
Oh.
We've got to have hope, right?
I mean,
we've got to have hope.
I think what we're saying is we want to inspire different futures. That's what we said. We don't want to say this is a prediction or this is because what we see going on like last few decades, we love this bottom-up solution, like a approach that there is an inspiration and then people makes happen. It's not just us, it's the people, audience, the public makes the future. And we want to kind of inspire a different thoughts, a different way of tackling these issues. And then another message we want to come across is we want to thrive. We don't want to survive, which means like we want to give a bit of a humor and fun. We got to have fun. And maybe the world is so hard, and I mean any time of the human life it's hard and really tough, and the environment might look like it's getting like a worse and worse, but maybe as a human being we have to have some kind of fun in our life, and that's why we want to be sea slug, for example, because it looks like they just sunbathe all day. Come on, that can't be not fun, right? You just sleep and gain energy. What does that feel like? And that's what we are looking for, probably. We don't know where we're going, but we hope you guys make a great future.
Yes, exactly. And just on that point, I think this idea of one prediction is kind of a past mind frame, because I think where we're heading is there cannot be a generic. There has to be solutions that are fit for different biomes. So wherever you are in the world, the idea is that we don't have a standardized diet at all, but we are living and eating and consuming in deep and diverse ways that are fit for wherever we are. So, it's moving away from, everyone's consuming meat in a certain way or whatever, but it's where are you? What is your environment? What is possible there, and not getting trapped in just one or two ingredients, or trying to understand that, eating avocados in London is probably not great in terms
but then
of
what is the
when
alternative, and then what can we maybe that's where we embrace the emerging technologies. Maybe we do love these scientists who is coming up with amazing technologies combined with this nature and environment. So maybe we are saying, let's be creative about how we survive.
Yeah, be adventurous.
Yes. Is that good?
So yeah, so there is hope, I suppose. Let's stay in our biomes and cherish it and take care of it. I think our time is ending now of our meeting. I mean, not the time of the humanity, hopefully. Thank you very much for your presentations, that you could be with us and tell the public about your projects and your inspirations. Thank you to all the people who are listening to us. I encourage you to see the exhibition, which is open until 18th of November, and to see the Michiko and Michael's project, Biota Beings. And yes, I mean, I think that's all. Thank you very much, and have a great evening.
Thank you so much for your time, and we say goodbye.
Okay. So thank you again. Bye.